Say yes to new beginnings.
Yes.
Say yes to new standards of excellence.
Yes.
Say yes to engaging reportage with a difference.
Yes.
Introducing Yes International Magazine. The time to say yes to your dreams and aspirations is here.
Good evening, Lagos. Good evening, Nigeria. Good evening, Africa. Good evening, London. Good evening, America. Good evening, UAE. Good evening good evening to everyone. I don't know what time frame is like where you're watching us from, but whatever it is, good evening and greetings. My name is Azu Arinze, and I want to happily welcome you to tonight's Instagram Live with Nigeria's King of Comedy, Ali Baba. Now, for the benefit of those who do not know much about Ali Baba, wow, Pastor Okwabio, thanks so much. This must be Pastor Mfonido. I want to believe. Thanks so much for joining us. For how are you? Thanks so much for joining us. Thanks so much for joining us. Yes, back to what I was saying earlier on. For those who may not know or who only know our guest as Ali Baba, his real name is actually Atuyota Alleluia Akpobome, popularly known as Ali Baba. Now, Ali B, like I call him, is 55 years old. He was born on June 24, 1965. Oh, the Sodas, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks so much, thanks so much. He is from Agbaroto. Agbaroto is in Delta State. Of course, he's a graduate of the Ambrose Ali University in Ekpoma, Edo State. He read the religious studies and the philosophy. For those, my sister and my friend Olayinka Dairo is here. Good evening. Good evening. Thanks so much. Thanks so much. It's always so nice to know that you're there for us and to have you join us. Thanks so much. Thanks so much. Yes. Tolulope Agbe Davis, thanks so much. Thanks so much. Yeah. Olayinka Dairo, let me also give you a round of applause. Thanks so much for your consistency, for your belief. Tolulope, I'm also giving you a round of applause. Thanks so much. Thanks so much. Thanks so much. Yes, our guest is Ali Baba, and his real name is Atuyota Akpobome. Hallelujah. Like I said earlier on, he is 55 years old. He was born on June 24, 1965, and is from Agbaroto in Delta State. Of course, he's a graduate of religious studies and philosophy, Ambrose Ali University in Ekpoma, Edo State. He is happily married to the love of his life, and that's talking about the super banker, the ever supportive. We call her Mommy B, Mrs. Mary Akpobome. Ali B has 5 wonderful children. He is unarguably Nigeria's King of Comedy. He changed the face of comedy in Nigeria. So tonight we'll be taking him up on how he did it and what prompted that. I want to believe that any moment from now he will be joining us. I think one of his most popular quotes is that being funny is serious business. Indeed, being funny is serious business. I totally agree with him. In a very short while, he will be joining us so that he can tell us how he did it. You know, how he moved Rafata. Always a pleasure having you join us all the way from the United States of America. Thanks so much, Raf. Thanks so much. Raf was my schoolmate, I think, when we were in primary school. Yeah, primary school. Either primary school or secondary school. I can't remember. But this was back then in Osaka. This should be over 40 years ago. You know, one of the friends that I've known longest. Thanks so much, Raf. And how is the United States of America today? Yes, our guest is Ali Baba, Nigeria's king of comedy. I want to believe, not that I want to believe, I know that he'll be joining us any moment from now. We spoke a while back, so we're waiting for him to send us a request and we'll bring him in so that we can move straight into business. Ali Baba, Nigeria's king of comedy. Atuyota, Hallelujah, Akpobome, that is his real name. He's 55 years old, he's from Agbaroto in Delta State. He is a graduate of religious studies and philosophy, Ambrose Ali University, Ekpoma, Edo State. So we're waiting for him to join us so that we can set sail, can get cracking. Afo City. Thanks so much, Afolabi Orekoya, my friend and my brother. How is Canada today? How is your wonderful family? Thanks so much. Always nice, you know, having you join us. Thank you, Afo. We are waiting for Ali Baba to send us a message so that we can bring him in and we'll take off. Tunji Buhari, wow, he shares the same surname with our president. Excuse me. Thanks so much for joining us, Tunji Buhari. Thanks so much. Tunji Buhari, I like that. Tunji Buhari. Oh, Ali Baba, CFR, comedian of the Federal Republic, just waved. Ali, we are waving back. Thanks so much. We're waiting for your request so that we can bring you in. Thank you so much. Wow, all the wonderful people who have joined us. Yes, Olayinka Dare says our guest is here. Yes, he is. He just waved. So we're waiting for his request so that we can bring him in. Thank you so much. Ayokunle Badmos, thank you so much for joining us. Ayokunle Badmos, thanks so much for joining us. All the wonderful people who have joined us this night, thanks so much. Tolulope Davis, thanks so much. Wow. We are waiting. Ali Baba will be joining us any moment from now so that we can get started. Nigeria's undisputed king of comedy, Ali Baba, we are priority. Thanks so much for joining us. Priority, thanks so much for joining us. Wow, Ali Baba is here. Let's see that we can have a wonderful time this night. Ali B. Wow, and here comes Nigeria's king of comedy, Ali Baba Atuyota. Ali B. Adebrai, good evening. I'm fine. So nice to see you. Awesome Vivian, I can see you. Thanks so much. Patty Osukwe, thanks so much for joining us. Chris B, thanks so much for joining us. Oladi Meji, thanks so much. TP, thanks so much. Mr. Tokati. Wow, those are people from your constituency, Alibi. Yeah. Yes. Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much. Bidex, thanks so much. I am Pishon. Oh, is that MC Passion? Thanks so much. Nelson, 2025, thanks so much. Yes. Ali B, I want to shoot straight. Before you joined us, I had introduced you. So, I mean, there's hardly anybody in Nigeria who can claim he or she doesn't know who Ali Baba is, but I had introduced you before you joined us. So, I want to start. Am I permitted to go ahead?
Go ahead, I'm ready.
Thank you very much. Now, at what point should a comedian be taken seriously?
When he begins to charge money for the services that he renders.
Okay.
Because the thing is that until you begin to charge for what you do, it's a hobby.
Okay.
You don't charge people for your hobby. If your hobby is, okay, I like to just sing, you know, then it is a hobby. You like to sing. But when you then present, until you convert any hobby to a talent and a service, you cannot be considered a businessman. So you can only be paid when you convert the talent that you have into a business.
Wow, I love that. I love that. Now, how does a comedian go about monetizing his craft and his talent?
Well, there are several ways. One is performing on stage. Another one is writing scripts. The other thing you can do is editing scripts. This is one other thing that a lot of the comedians do not know that I do, but now I can mention it. It is that I get scripts, presentation scripts from different people. There are lawyers, there are governors, there are ministers, and others. And they will say, okay, our guy is presenting a speech, and so. This is the speech. Go through the speech and see where you can infuse a lot of humor so that the speech is not all dry. And so you can make money from that as well. You also can make money from being a cartoonist. If you're a comedian, you can make money from being a cartoonist. I remember, you know, a lot of people do not know that when Sonya left Fame magazine, I used to do a bit of cartoon.
Yeah.
I used to do a bit of cartoon back in the day. But the thing is that any comedian that applies himself properly would have a lot of platforms to sell his skills. You also can be a TV presenter. You can be a radio presenter. You can be an actor. You can be a comedic actor. You could do skits. You could be used as a model for a talent for TV commercials. You also could have a nightclub where you perform as a side attraction. You also, as a comedian, can be an MC if your English is good enough. Even if your English is not good enough, you could be an MC for some people who don't mind whether you speak English well or you don't. There are different ways that you can apply your talent as a comedian and make money. Then you can be a blogger as well. There's nothing stopping you from blogging about the kind of comedy skills that you have. So yes, there are several ways that you can make a lot of money and apply your talents. Yes.
Wow, fantastic. Now I saw Eboa Brusobi. Thanks so much for joining us. The Precious Bosse, thanks so much for joining us. Stylo Comedian, thanks so much. Pretty Me, good evening, and thanks so much for joining us. All the people who have joined us for time, I will take more recognitions. Yes, now Ali B, what business lessons must the comedian take in order to soar, in order to explode, in order to grow bigger? What are the biggest business lessons that a comedian needs to learn, to imbibe, to inject into whatever thing he or she is doing in order to expand?
Okay, so first of all is that the comedian must understand the market. You must understand the market that you are playing in. For instance, if you are playing in the market in Edo State, it is different from Lagos market. The people in Edo State will be driven by their mindset and their environment. So the people in Edo State feel like, comedy here, you can't charge 1 million naira to do events. So what it means is that your environment will affect how much you charge in that area. The other thing is that what is the mindset of the people? For instance, if you are in a purely civil servant area and the earning per capita of the people is not more than, so maybe the people that you're going to be engaging, that are going to be engaging your services do not earn more than 100K a month. It would affect how much you charge. It would affect the expectations of income from those kind of people. That said, you also must know that your pricing becomes a very major part of your career. The amount you charge. For instance, somebody says, come and do something for me in Lagos, and you run to Lagos and do an event, and they pay you 500,000 naira. You cannot go back now. NEPA has struck, but don't worry, we'll continue. You cannot go back and say, I charge 500 in Lagos, so now that I'm back to Ebonyi, I want to be charging 500,000. Nobody will pay you the 500,000. And I use that now because it is an experience that I have. And it is that when I was in Ekpoma as a young student, as an undergraduate, I found out that in school, the fees they were paying me in school were 5 naira, 10 naira, 20 naira, 30 naira to perform in school. But when I left school and went to do something for Coca-Cola outside school, I will get like 100 naira. If I did well, I could get maybe like 300 naira. In school, my students were paying me 50 naira. In fact, the highest was 50 naira, which was from a guy called Percy Okoje. But when I came to Unilag, I was paid 250 naira. When I went to Lutz, the physiotherapy students of Lutz, they paid 500 naira.
Wow.
When I went to Uniben, they paid 300 naira. So it was like I was like an expatriate. So what I'm trying to say, the environment also determines what you charge. So your environment will also determine what you charge. The other thing that you must consider is that every event that you do is a platform to sell yourself to the next one. Because somebody is sitting down in that audience and you do not know whether the person is planning the next show. Or the person may not even have thought of adding a comedian to the show. But as soon as you finish, the person goes, I think I want that guy to come to Grandma's 80th. So you must learn to market yourself with the performance that you make at you present at every other event. Now, also, you need to ask a comedian to go global and develop yourself and groom yourself and become so because when I was talking about school, some people were looking at it. So let me just put a date to that. I'm talking of 1987 and 1988. So, so when I say 100 naira, so when I say 100 naira, at that time that I'm talking 100 naira, 50 naira, 60 naira, it was some people's salary for a month. Just bear in mind. I can testify to it. 1987, there were people whose salary a month was 100 naira. All right. Okay, so we get that. Then you must also take into cognizance your publicity. How do you promote yourself? Because visibility is important for you. As a comedian, who are the people that you relate with? Who are the people who you network with? Am I still here?
Yeah, you're still on.
Hello.
Hello, I can hear you, Ali.
So the people you network with is also okay. So the people you network with is important for you to grow, right? That said, there's nothing wrong with bearing any name, but for you to go far, MC Abracadabra may not get you a lot of corporate events. MC Abracadabra may not get you a lot of corporate events, especially if you are growing step by step. If you land on the scene with a bundle of talent that is unmissable and unique, you can call yourself Holy Fire for anything. You can call yourself anything, but your talent will then make way for you. So somebody will be like, he has a bad name, but he's very good. Yeah. You know? So all of these are things that you need to bear in mind, and research is also important. Not you know, when I started, one of the things that got me to this point is the fact that I sat down with all the encyclopedias, since comedy had not grown in Nigeria for you to see textbooks on comedy. Even now, you don't have textbooks on comedy. I'm just working on the first 4 textbooks that would deal on developing the talent, that would deal on marketing the brand, that would deal on negotiations. So all of those books are coming. But the thing I'm trying to say is that at that time, what I depended on, and don't forget that there were no on the internet at the time. So what I depended on was were my encyclopedia. So Encyclopedia Britannica, Encyclopedia Americana, and any other book that had anything to do with humor, hilarity, and jokes. But I did not have, and one book that I must, two books that I must say were important in growing the personality and the career that I had were Reader's Digest, and a book called The National Geographic. These two will open your mind, because the mind of anybody that wants to become a comedian has to be wide and broad for him to assimilate a lot of ideas and then transmit them on stage by infusing humor into them. So if you and the other thing again, so I keep saying the other thing, one more thing is that you must, as a comedian, and you want to be great, learn to create jokes every time. So you walk into a room, you can make 5 jokes out of it in your pocket. You keep that. You walk into a place, even if you don't say it out, you just say, oh, that would be a good joke, you save it. Oh, that would be a good joke, you save it. When you go home, you can develop them. If you have a comedian there, you can bounce it off the friend and say, can you imagine if so and so happened? Can you imagine if so and so happened? What I found out is it is the inability of some people to create jokes by themselves that makes them continue to pilfer jokes from other people. And so they wait for other people to create the jokes, and then they will take the jokes. All right. But in all, it is that everything that is needed to become a great comedian and an international comedian is in line with the best practices, the best business practices. Whatever applies to any business to grow can apply to your business as a comedian as well. If you treat it as a business, that is.
Wow. Wow, I love that. I love that. Now, to have a taste of success, to have a taste of success as a comedian, what must one do?
Well, to have the taste of success as a comedian, you first have to build content. You must have what people would justify your talent with. It is when they've justified that talent that you begin to assume the role of a celebrity and begin to claim to be successful. So every now and then, people will call, oh, that's a comedian. The fact that they call you a comedian is that they expect you to make them laugh anytime a mic is handed over to you. They also expect you to be not even ha funny, but to have a great sense of humor when they are around you. So you find that if you are around, that's why I say one of the best comedians that never, some of the best comedians that never were, is somebody like Two-Face Idibia and Sound Sultan. Those two have great sense of humor. They can create jokes. And one other guy that has passed on, his name is Efere Ozako. Efere Ozako can keep you laughing for the next 1.5 hours, and you will still be wondering, is this guy a lawyer or a comedian? Has an awesome sense of humor. It exudes from him. So any comedian that also wants to lay a claim to that name, comedian, must have any of all those in abundance.
Wow. Well, thank you. Now, what must every comedian do first on being contacted or contracted for an event?
So the first thing is to find out what date, what kind of event, venue and location of the event. Then after that, you then find out what, because the thing is, what kind of event is even very important. You know, some people will say, oh, are you available for an event on the 14th? The next question you will ask is, I'm available for the event on the 14th, but what kind of event is it? Because your capacity is not to be tested by just any event. So somebody says, oh, can you be the MC at my wedding? You say yes. They say it's in Abeokuta, and you are in Kano, and they call you. You begin to think of the logistics and everything that you need to put in. If they call you to come and do something in Damaturu, you also will bear that in mind. And so it is important to know location. It's important to know the event itself. It's important to know the services they require. Do they need your service as a comedian for just 1 hour, or they need you all through the event, so they keep bringing you in now and then? Or they say, oh, you have a capsule of 5 minutes. You have an allocated 10 minutes. You just fill that 10 minutes and dash off. There are some people who would want you to do a 10 minutes performance at an event, but they want you to be there from the beginning of the event till the end. So any comedian that needs to be booked has to also bear in mind that the client that is booking you is important. The fees you charge individuals is different from the fee you charge corporate bodies. Your corporate fees is the same service you're offering, but the application of that service is different when you are doing it for an individual or when you are doing it for a corporate body. I'll explain. If you call me to come and be a comedian at a state function, state functions are places that have more than 2 excellencies, or has the president in attendance, or has the vice president in attendance, or has a governor in attendance. That's a state function. And so the kind of jokes you will perform at a state function will be different from the one you will perform when Mr. and Mrs. A are getting married in Dokpemu. So your jokes will be tailored to the kind and quality of people that you are entertaining. So those are the things a comedian must bear in mind.
Wow, wow, okay. Now you just scratched the next question that I will ask, and that is, how does a comedian know what joke to say at an event and what joke not to say?
Well, there's a thin line between being funny and being offensive. There's a thin line between being funny and being offensive. And so, because one step like this, you've offended some sensibilities. One step like this, 10 people are laughing. One step like this, only 4 people are laughing. And then somebody takes offense. The truth is, all of the people that will come for your event or that would listen to you have what you need to respect. Either you respect their culture, respect their language, respect their environment, respect their personality, or respect the dynamics of the event totally. If somebody invites you to come and be a comedian at a birthday party, you also try not to embarrass the guests, and you try not to embarrass the client. So all of those come into the factor into the kind of jokes that you tell. Then sometimes the jokes may be requested to be tailored to the event. The client might say, because we're accountants, we would like your jokes to surround accountants. Because it's a dinner for lawyers, we would like you to take the legal register. So what will happen is you then take the kind of language that they speak and infuse it into your performance so that they can relate with you.
I love that. I love that. Now, what are the elements of a good joke?
What are the
elements, attributes of a good joke?
Okay, so the elements of a joke. First of all, you have the spontaneity, you have location, you have style, you have audience, you have the situation. Is it a happy mood? Is it a political gathering? Is it what kind of event it is? Then the jokes that you're building should also have timing. You should know what time to be, and then the historical facts. You need every joke must have facts that you twist. Then you must have elements that people can relate with. People must be able to say, "Oh, I recognize. Oh, I've seen somebody do that kind of thing before. Oh, that has happened to me before." That's relatability. So your joke must have relatability. Then the other thing is that it must have the story, the setup, and the punchline. Those are the three major factors of a joke. So you have the story, you have the setup, and then you have the punchline. Most times you must try, but then you can then have a killer joke that has the story, punchlines, setup, punchline, setup, then the major punchline. So that is called the killer joke. And so your killer jokes may be a joke that has like maybe 6 or 7 laughter causing material. So if you have a joke that has like 5 of those kind of punchlines spread all through the performance of that joke, then it's a killer joke. But if you have the ones that just one line, so you have one-liner jokes. The one-liner jokes are the jokes that don't take they don't take a long story. It's just one line, pam, and you drop it. Those are the kind of things. One other element that you need to put in this is a language. The language that you use to tell a joke, or the language of the joke, must be one that everyone that is listening to the joke must relate with. So if you're going to tell jokes in pidgin, and the people you are telling the joke to do not understand the slangs that you add into the joke, then you've wasted the joke. That is like you're winking in the dark. You must also bear in mind timing. Timing is important when you are building a joke, because in this modern time and days, I performed during this lockdown online. And if you're performing online, people are watching from different parts of the world. It means that your jokes have to be universal. So you build the joke to be universal. But if you are performing in a locality, you can localize it. But when you are performing to a mixed culture and a multicultural audience, then you have to step up the joke to it. So the joke is also determined by the audience, and is determined by the time of the joke. That, for instance, if the people just suffered, if like Nigeria just suffered the death of somebody that was really dear to us, talking about death would be out of the question. So you take in the situation of the time and water down that joke. And then there's sensibilities like rape. It may be funny to some people, but no, there are people who are actually going through that. So you try and water it down, or don't just avoid that. So there are certain things you must say that you must water down because of sensibilities. A joke finally must reflect on a message. So what you do is you tell the people very funny things, and while they are laughing, you stick the message in. So jokes must always have a message.
Wow. Wow. Very nice. Very nice. Right. So what are the attributes of a good comedian?
A good comedian must be quick on the take, must be spontaneous. A good comedian must be spontaneous. A good comedian must have strong memory base. Strong memory base. You know, sometimes when I talk about how Dele Momodu and I went to Ngozi Fine Legs and I describe what happened at the place, Dele Momodu will be like, how did you remember? I said, because I take in everything that I see. I can drive through a street and I'll tell somebody, did you see the woman sitting there with a yellow wrapper? And you'll be like, how did you see it? I can be driving. So you have to be observant. Observational comedy is one thing that saves a lot of people. I must also add that for a comedian to be top of his game is that you must be creating jokes every time. The other thing you must do is that you must be fresh. Your jokes must be fresh. And you should also learn to network and develop your connections. Don't burn your bridges. Be available. I was talking to somebody many years ago, and the person said that, do you know, showing up at somebody's birthday party, somebody that is popular, showing up at somebody's birthday party is part of promotions? And I was like, oh, why? He said, yeah. So because it's visibility. He said, if you're an artist and you are not visible, then it's like, even the Bible says, do you have a candle? Do you have a light and you put it under a bushel? You can't. So you must always let your talent and everything that you have show. Don't forget the story of the talent. The 3 people were given talents. One buried his own and said, I don't want wahala. Then the other people were promoting theirs and reselling and doing everything and doing business with theirs. So that is the same trick. It is that whatever talent you have, don't bury it. You have to continue to develop it. You know, sometimes I sit back and I watch some performances, and I can watch maybe 30 comedians in a week or in 2 weeks. And I'll say, oh, I remember when I did that joke in 1994 at Fame Music Award. I remember when I did that joke at Night Shift. I remember doing that joke at Roots Nightclub. Oh, I performed that joke. Sometimes I'll call Eddie Lawani. I'll say, Eddie, remember when I did this joke at Class Nightclub? Eddie will say, oh, yes, with Eddie, yes. So Eddie will go, yes, I remember. And I can remember the jokes that I told at Lord's Nightclub. I can remember the ones I told at Peak, where you now have the Adeno Busaya shopping mall. Peak Nightclub was up there. It belonged to the car dealer. Yes, Inegbese. And I remember going to that place. Yes, and Stagali also helped me and put me on stage in some of all those places. So I remember the jokes that I told because, like I said, every great comedian must have an awesome memory. And that kind of memory is one of the things that will keep you through business and keep you in the career.
Yeah, well, I love that. Now, when a comedian is on stage and he tells a joke that people feel it is not funny, how does the comedian recover from that? What are the best ways?
Okay, so your bounce back. It's called a bounce back. It's called a bounce back. So the thing is that sometimes when you drop a joke and the people do not get it, you have to have a bounce back that takes and leapfrogs from that joke into another one. So they would think that the joke that fell flat is a setup. They should not see that the joke was flat. They should then, from what you then do and say after that, they will then say, oh, he prepared that joke to launch this punchline. So you must, and which is why you must have a huge retrieval system. Your retrieval system must be so huge, just taking as much of the information. You know, a comedian must have a spongy brain. Just keep taking sponge, just soak up content and let it filter into the back of your head. So that when you get on stage, as you're talking, a lot of total recall will begin to happen. So when you are telling a joke, it is hard for you to fall flat. But this I can say from experience. From experience, it is something that I have learned. And so I can tell somebody now, I've taught all the comedians that have worked with me closely that this is how you should do it. When you get on stage and the joke bumps, remember to bounce out of it with so and so. And then sometimes you have dead air. Dead air is when you tell a joke, which is what you just referred to now, and the joke does not fly. Making the audience think about the joke will kill you even more. Don't forget that stand-up comedy is one of the most difficult art form, because you can perform, you can play music. When you finish playing the music, people will go home and go, I don't just like that band. It is different. You can go on stage and act and somebody will be like, oh, the actors were not so good. But because a comedian is supposed to elicit laughter, as soon as you finish the joke, if it doesn't make them laugh, you have failed. So it means that the comedian can die many times more than any other artist. And your judgment is immediate. So the comedian must be ready for that. So what I normally say is, if you're not prepared for that live audience, don't go on stage. It's best to say he didn't come on stage than he came on stage. Which was why we started the spontaneity thing. We started the spontaneity thing so that anybody who comes on stage will be like, any paper you pick, you can crack a joke about it. It is about it, because the spontaneity of any comedian is the holy grail. Once you are spontaneous, there is nowhere you can wake somebody like Sam Loco up today and he will be funny. Wake Sam Loco up today, he will be funny. Wake Okon up, Okon. Wake Okon up today. He'll be funny. That is how it is, yeah.
Wow, wow. Now, so what are the best avenues to come up with jokes?
People watching.
Yeah.
Undisputedly is observation. Observational research is the best way to get jokes. So you observe people, how they say things, what they say, how they say it, and then you then build on those things that they've said. That's the best way. That's the best way. Observation is the best way to make jokes.
Okay, all right. Now, how does one determine, or how does a comedian determine whether a joke will be funny or not, especially at the conceptualization stage?
Okay, it must be amusing. It is when something is amusing that you then develop it into a joke. For instance, somebody will be like, do you know that guy? He likes to talk, and he likes to say, get it, get it, get it. Anything he says, he will say, get it. So you already learned a mannerism. When you learn that mannerism, you can then build on it. Another thing is that, which is what people who do improvisation do. When somebody does comedy of improvisation, they learn the mannerisms of the person and make a joke out of it. So if you also want to make jokes out of people, you watch them, how they talk and how they, like Yoruba people. I remember doing this joke in an Atalade said, this was in 1987 or thereabout. I said, which is one of the best jokes of the late Steve Rhodes, Past Steve. Now, Past Steve says that he heard that joke first time at the French Center, and he said that he loved it. And I was talking about Yoruba people. I said, when Yoruba people, and this is something else, when you want to make jokes, you try to pick from the environment and from the culture and from the practices of the people. So this is what I said. I said, when the Yoruba man buys a car, the Yoruba man and the car become one. When an Igbo man buys a car is a car. The Igbo man is an Igbo man. The car is a thing of pride, show off, or this thing. But when the Yoruba man buys a car and the man become one. So if he's taking the car for a wash, he doesn't say he's taking the car for a wash. He say, car wash. It's not the car that is going to car wash, it's the man himself that is going to car wash. So if the man also wants to buy fuel, he say, money the ekpo. It's not him that needs the ekpo. It's not the car that needs the ekpo. It's the man himself. That is his own, not the car.
Yeah, he personalizes it.
Exactly. The car and the Yoruba man are one. Which is why when you hit a Yoruba man, he will tell you, oh, bami latte. It is not the car you hit, it's the Yoruba man himself that you hit. He will tell you, Mon traffic. And the other thing that just kills me is that they know. Have you heard this before? You hit a Yoruba man's expensive car and he says, Temiti Baje. It's not the car, it's the car you hit, but him will say Temiti Baje. And the wives of those Yoruba people also know that the car and the man are one. So if a Yoruba man is driving and he runs into a pothole that is very bad, the woman salutes the man. Baba Junior Ekpeleo, because she knows that pothole they entered is the man. So it is, and you see, this kind of joke is called a killer joke because you have over 10 punchlines and you can continue to stretch it for as long as you want.
Yes. All right. I love that. Now, What jokes must a comedian not say?
Well, from the religious point of view, I will say this. Even Jesus said that every other sin can be forgiven, but the sin against the Holy Spirit, nah, don't go there. if Jesus himself says, you can say jokes about me, Jesus, you can say jokes about God, but if you go that Holy Spirit guy,
don't go there. Come here. Feel a bit.
Feel a bit, because you remember when God wanted to descend on the Egyptians, it was the Holy Spirit that went to Paris. It's the Holy Spirit that went there to finish the work. When Jesus died on the cross, it was the Holy Spirit that went to tear down the temple. When Ananias and his wife cheated the congregation, it was the Holy Spirit that it was the Holy Spirit that said, you guys be going. Is it not this Egyptian? The Egyptians you see now. You see no more. It is, and God also warned them and said, look, let me tell you, mark the door of your house, so mark the door of your house, because that guy that is coming, if he doesn't see that blood, finish. You know, so true. So that is one. The second thing is that rape is a no-go area. All right. Rape is a no-go area. It is also important to know that you should also not make jokes about the dead. You should not make jokes about the dead. If you're talking about anything, it should be on a lighter note, but it is not to be offensive. Yep.
All right. Now, credit.
Let me say something quickly.
Yes.
There's somebody here called Callistus 499. He came on just now and wrote. He wrote, "Are you a comedian?" You see, there are people now who do not know me, who have not been to my shows, who are just young children that were born in the last 10, 20 years, and did not know me from 1987. They will go to events and hear they will go to events and hear people telling my jokes and laugh. And still tell me you are not funny. But when they hear people telling my jokes, they will be laughing. And sometimes I go to the events and I'm like, oh, really? One comedian was performing one time on stage. He has killed the jokes, and then he told about like 2 of my jokes. One man in the audience came to meet me. You see, these boys will drive you out of business. I said, they are doing very well. I sat down. When the comedian came to greet me, I told him, I said, this man said that he would drive me out of business. He said, okay, I beg, go 2 of his jokes now talk just now, so I beg. Which was why I did the 6 hours performance.
Yeah, I remember. I was there.
Okay, exactly. You know, when I did the first 3 hours, some people were telling me the next show will be they will repeat the distance. And I did another 3 hours again, and I never repeated the joke. I said, somebody should try and do the same thing. It is important to, you know, we understand that the young ones are making waves and they're taking the torch and moving on. But you see, if you do not know, then you do not know. If somebody tells you of a double-decker bus in London, the fact that you have not seen it doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
That's true.
You understand? If you know, which is an explanation that I give all the time. People say, oh, Alibaba is not funny, it's not working again. And I say, is it that you've come to the places that I perform and you've seen that I'm not working? Because if you have a man that is doing police work on the Ibadan Express Road, and you see the man there when 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and you are still driving past and seeing the man there, that means he didn't grow. But if you drive past and they say he's no more there, he's now an inspector. Oh, he's no more there, he's now an ASP. He's no more there, he's now a commissioner of police. That means he has grown. If you also go to a bank and you meet a teller and give him money and discounting it with the machine, and in 30 years, you come back and he's still counting money in that bulk room, Now, but that means that he has not grown. But when you come and they say, oh, he's no more there,
he's in another office.
He's in another office. You go to the office, oh, now he's in head office. Oh, he's not the GM. Oh, now he's not. So most times, people who do not know you mix it up. And it's a lot of the young generations that do that. They do not know you. They do not inquire. They do not even check. And by the way, the time that we were performing, most of the work that we did were on CDs and VHS. And so most of these young people will go and look for those tapes, find the jokes. I will use them to make skits. I've seen, I don't want to talk about anything, but they're doing very well because they're helping to push the narrative and bringing the old jokes back. But I sometimes go online and I see skits and I'm like, I did that joke in UI Treasure Hall now. Oh, okay, I remember this joke. I did this joke in the convocation. I remember doing this joke in Uniben. But you see, people who were not in that era, as they say, if Pharaoh, a king arose that did not know Joseph. A Pharaoh arose that did not know Joseph. But we'll move on. We'll move on.
Yes. All right. All right. Now, how did you go about changing the face of comedy? You know, and what triggered it? What necessitated it?
You know, one thing is that if you want to become a comedian from experience, if you want to become a comedian, you need to have goals in mind. What was my goal? My goal was to become an awesome comedian. My goal was to become an awesome comedian because I had seen the talent. I had exhibited the talent that people had recognized it and appreciated it, and I felt, okay, then I can do a lot more. Yes, we move. You see, in my time, it was a talent that was not commercialized. There were actors, there were comedic actors. There were Baba Salah, Papilu, Zebudaya, and Samanja, Jaguar, and all those people. But, you know, stand-up comedy had not been commercialized. But when I started doing stand-up comedy, I had to research and find out how that art form developed, how stand-up comedy developed. And I found out that stand-up comedy actually started with African slaves. African slaves that were taken into the West Indies, taken into the Americas, taken into Brazil. And they were, you know, the slaves were picked from different places. And so they did not know themselves. They did not know, they did not understand a common language. They did not speak a common language. And because they did not speak a common language, it was important for them to communicate, because communication is one core part of human beings. We have to communicate. So they now learned how to communicate with the white man's language, which was the broken English. But you see, the broken English that they spoke was the bad corruption of the English language. And so, which was how they also created jazz music. The blacks also created jazz music because they had different people who could play a lot of instruments, but they did not know how to speak a common language. So they will play instruments and play and have a chorus. So they will just come and take the chorus and then go back and play the instruments and play for a long time before they come to play again. So what happened was that these blacks, when they finished working in the cotton farm, in the sugarcane farm, in the rice farms and all those farms, they then sit back in the evenings and gather around, make their local and traditional brew. And so when they're drinking the local and traditional brew, they begin to, so one of them will stand up and try to crack jokes using that language. And when the white men saw it, it became an entertainment form. And so people were coming from, don't forget that what the white men were doing was not stand-up comedy. What they were doing was pantomime. What white people were doing was pantomime. It wasn't stand-up comedy. But when they came, they now saw that the blacks were doing stand-up comedy. And so they tried to take it back to the theater. And that was when the white people now started painting their faces black as black minstrels to perform the stand-up act, because they noticed that people were already taken to the out country. So people were driving into the country to go listen to those black comedians. But let me bring it back home. So I decided that after understanding the comedic history and the origin of it, I said, okay, then let me begin to push this. And I watched Richard Pryor, I watched Eddie Murphy, I watched Dizzy Gillespie, I watched all the big names, you know, Red Fox, Sanford and Sons of Red Fox. But Red Fox even had a Grammy album. Bill Cosby had a Grammy album. And all of these people were part of the people that inspired me, that made me feel, okay, if they could do that stand-up there, then I can do that stand-up here too. Now, I took that and blew it up in a big way. I believe that the other thing that then happened was that my dad was challenged because I was supposed to read law. You know, I was supposed to read law. And so when I told my dad that I was not going to read law, he stopped paying my fees. So I was challenged to make sure that I succeeded in being a comedian. You know, don't forget that as far back as 1990 and 1991, there were still people who didn't believe that stand-up comedy was any form. You remember that the governor of Night Shift refused for me to perform at Night Shift and said he can't take comedy in this club. We can't take comedy in this club. I said, okay, no problem. As far as Fudge fought, Fudge said, this boy can kill this place. He said, no, Night Shift is a premium club. It's for glamour boys.
It's not a go-go bar.
Exactly. And Dave, first man, Dave will tell me that there was an event they had here with Ski Dikemefuna, and this Alibaba guy, he did very well. Governor said, no, not my club. When you set your club, you go, go, put him there. But Mike Effiong remembers now. Mike Effiong remembers. Until when he started seeing that I was performing in different places and I was entertaining Marwa, I was entertaining all the other people. That was when he now said, okay, but at that time I don't start to charge money. And he said he cannot pay anybody to entertain. If you are holding the Glamour Boy card, he cannot pay you. I told Segun Joseph that I said, tell him, if he doesn't pay, I'm not performing. You know, it was a long journey, but thank God we're here.
Wow, I love that. I love that. And I remember the story very, very well. Now, when did you now begin to see the rewards of that ingenious action that you took?
Okay, I can say that the first things were that there were people who were beginning to give me recognitions that were very important to me. One was Raskimono. Raskimono came to Epoma, I performed, and Raskimono said, oh, yes, come man, you're talented, great, because I was on the roll. So he said, I know you're talented, and that's one. The second thing was there's a guy called Edi Lawani, who was the administrative secretary of PMAN at the time. This was Okoroji era. And you know that time, they just gave PMAN 10 million naira. Hey, man, wow. IBB gave PMAN. IBB gave PMAN 10 million. It looked like 300 million.
But that was a lot of money there.
PMAN was like Nigerian breweries at the time. They were big companies. In fact, they were no more an organization, they were big conglomerates. And so, as administrative secretary of PMAN, when any of all those big artists, when Shino Peters came to Ekpoma, Edi Lawani came. When Peter Saido Tong came, Edi Lawani came. When Daniel Wilson came, he came. And then he now came with Charlie Boy. And you know that song Charlie Boy did that time. They wait for 1990.
Oh.
You know, they wait for 1990.
They don't say the trouser with big pockets. I remember.
And so when Edi Lawani came that time, Edi Lawani came, and one lady that was with Charlie Boy then was named Gloria Anozie. And so Gloria Anozie, when I finished performing, Gloria Anozie now came and said, Charlie Boy wants to meet you. I said, Charlie Boy said, yes. So I went backstage, and Charlie Boy said, you are very good with one name. Oh, you're very good. And you're not well. You are very stupid. So I was like, this man is praising me and abusing me at the same time, you know. So I said, okay, when you come to Lagos, let us see. I said, yes, sir. Then Edilawani gave me his card, P-Man card. And I came to Lagos at Oremeji. I met him when I finished performing at Lutz. I now went and met him. I said, that I'm the comedian. He said, oh, yes, he remembers me. Took me. We went to his office, went to Mustafa Amigo's office. We went around, you know. It was for me to become, you know, I didn't take all those chances lightly. But those were the things that actually then pointed to the fact that it looked like I could make it. And then there was a financial reason. It was that my allowance from my father was 100 naira every month. But I was performing at all these places and I could get 300 naira, 100 naira, 200 naira, 300 naira. And it was just for events. I'll go to Auchi Poly and I'll get 150. I'll go to Uniben, I'll get 300. And I was like, but my dad gives me 100 naira and I could make 600 naira, 700 naira in a month. So if my dad is giving me 100 naira in a month and I'm making more money than my old man. So those were some of the things, the indices that pointed me to the fact that this was going to be a successful career. All
right. Now, how does it feel to be adjudged or to be acknowledged as Nigeria's king of comedy?
It is challenging. It is challenging and tasking in the sense that it puts you it puts you on a pedestal that you can't fail, because there are many people who are looking up to you to grow. There are people who are looking at your style. There are people who are looking at your business acumen. There are people who are looking at your marketing skills. They are looking at how you are dealing with issues. And all of those issues then form part of their template to grow as well. So, but there's one thing that I also need to mention. Why I now thought that, because you asked, how did I now know that this was the thing to follow? Yeah. When Nigerian breweries, when Guinness now made me to took me to promote Satzenbrau. There's a drink that was called Satzenbrau back in the days.
Lagbaja was also part of it. I remember.
Yes, Lagbaja was doing his late night music for them. And so they said they wanted to do a tour. And the guy that was managing Satzenbrau as a brand there was called I.D. Yang. I.D. Yang was managing Satzenbrau. Himself and a lady called Sherry and the guy called Henry Omofoma. Those three guys were the ones that were managing the brand. And they now said, we should do a tour. And for every tour, they will pay me 100K. I said, okay, 100K. I said, okay. This was 1995. It was 1995. Wait now. So I said 100K. I said, how many places are we going to? He said, we're going to all the states in the country. I said,
You now calculated it.
So I now calculated it. I said 100 and that's 3.something million. But
same money don't
so what they did not tell me was that we'll cut the nuts out because it's Satzenbrau. Do you understand now?
Yeah.
Because Satzenbrau, they knew that you couldn't take the alcohol to the north. So when they mentioned all this, me, I calculated 36. I said, we don't die. We are finished. We don't make money.
We die here.
So they did Southwest, they did South-South, then they now did Middle Belt, then we went to Jos. I said, what of the other places? He said, only you can go now. You want to go and market now?
So only you can go and do those.
So that was how we now cut it to 1.6 million. So when I got my check for 1.6 million naira, hey, my brother, it was clear. I remember telling Dakova, I said, I'm a millionaire now. Dakova and Jimmy King, there were these two guys called Dakova and Jimmy King. They were making clothes for me. Jimmy King was on.
I know Jimmy King.
With Surulere, yes, with that dreadlock. Ogulano. Jimmy King was in Ogulano. Yeah, so Jimmy King was in Ogulano. This man was off Apapa Road. And they were making clothes for me. Then Kese Jabari too. And the Fatis now started taking my pictures. And, you know, I was a big boy.
Yes. We are rounding off. So we'll take about 2 or 3 more questions, you know. Now, to that struggling comedian out there, you know, who is there to hit the limelight, what would be your advice?
My advice is to be original and be creative and continue to create jokes. Once you are fresh and you make new jokes all the time, forget about somebody stealing your jokes. When you start complaining about somebody stealing your jokes, then it means that you are running dry. But continue to create new jokes. You would continue to succeed.
Wow, I love that. Now, I want to task you a little. I need you to tell me the first joke you ever came up with.
The first joke I ever came up with was about my student affairs officer in Ekpoma.
Okay. Tell us about
student affairs officer. My student affairs officer was called Edokpaye. Anybody who was Edokpaye was my student affairs officer, and I yabbed him. Edokpaye is want of a better description. Somebody like Donyo Kukwe. so I now said, see Edokpaye. So when you wear cloth now, the cloth go come get stretch marks, you know. I said because of his size, if you wear any cloth, the cloth will get stretch marks. You think a velvet. So it was my first joke, and you know, the first time I went on stage was when they had a striptease. Had this gist for plenty. We're running out of time, but in any case, any young comedian that needs to grow needs to be more creative and create new jokes. Yeah.
All right, Ali, you've been around now for over 3 decades. You know, what would you say has kept you going? What would you describe as the secret of your own success?
I've been around now 33 years. The secret of my success is that I'm humble. I try to make sure that I do not let the success get into my head. And I also try to make sure that I do not behave like I am an old-timer. Because comedy is dynamic, so I have to be dynamic. So whatever these children are doing, all of us will do and we'll die there.
We'll die here. I like that. Now, I need you to recollect the performance that changed your life and your career.
The performance that changed my life and my career will be the one for Obasanjo at the State House.
What year was this?
It was in 2000. Yes, year 2000. Because Obasanjo came in 1999.
99, yes.
Yeah. So when he came in 1999, they had a party for him, and at that party was when I blew.
Okay, what happened? Would you like to tell us what happened?
Okay, so the thing is that he did not expect that a comedian would come, and don't forget that he had been in prison all the time that I was making waves. All the time I was making waves, he was in prison. So when they now told him they were bringing a comedian, he thought it was going to be
Baba
Salah or something. And then I came on stage and I was yabbing everybody and himself. When I give him one, he will give me one. And then I now told this joke. I said, Baba, somebody cannot sit with you and laugh. Oh. I said, because you are laughing and slapping everybody by your side. I said, no wonder Theophilus Danjuma is always going away for treatment. It was one of my best. It was one of my best. It was an impressive night. And then the other one is when I entertained over 12 presidents across. In fact, no, I think about like 25. When they had the Commonwealth, Koja. You remember the Commonwealth in Abuja? All right. And then the Commonwealth had the Commonwealth came, all the presidents came, and then when Obasanjo won his second term, and all foreign presidents came into Nigeria, and I worked with Ike Nandagoba and Ronke Bello.
Wow. Wow. I love that. Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
So those were the things. Those were life-defining moments. And then Obasanjo now made sure that for every national event that they had at the villa, that I was in play.
Wow. I'll take the final question. And that would be, what is your strongest desire for the comedy industry in Nigeria?
My strongest desire for comedy industry is for the art of comedy as a business to be added into the Nigerian curriculum in the universities. Because I've also submitted something to the National University Commission, and it is that theater arts has to include stand-up comedy, because if you look at it right now, the comedians are making more money than the thespians. And if you're making more money than the thespians, then it means that this is a business that should be developed. And if it has to be developed, then the rudiments of it, the syllabus, the propagation of it, all of it should be taught in schools, because it's giving people a lot of jobs. And it should also be part of the curriculum for either the mass comm department or for the creative arts. Theater arts, yeah. So it's my goal to make sure that it is there, yeah.
Wow. Ali B, you would have been nice for us to go on and 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 on, but we are going to pause it here. Then maybe much later we'll schedule again and we will continue. But
let me give you a joke. Let me give you a joke before we go. Let me give you a joke.
Please go ahead. Go ahead.
See me.
I'm not seeing you. I'm not seeing you. I'm not seeing you.
My girlfriend will not
know. Good night. Maybe should just leave my live about myself alone. No, I said just leave him. I know where he's going. Good night, everyone. Thanks so much. All those who joined us tonight.
Okay, let me complete the joke now.
No, complete it. Let's meet again next month. Good night. Go and sleep. Good night, everyone. Good night. Don't complete any joke. Don't complete. You have said enough. Good night, Ali Baba.